Hey guys, I'm here with Jess Hoyson from House of Spoons on Instagram. We met over Instagram. So excited to be chatting with her today about Spoonie parenting and the life as a Spoonie parent. How are you, Jess?
I'm doing really good. Thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to this and I'm excited to talk.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this as well because honestly, as I was saying, like I feel like we could be friends. I'm like any chance I get to talk with Jess, like I'm so down. Talking about like our first conversation, we went straight into I'm dealing with this trauma and it's affecting me this way. I know. I love it. How's your week been?
My week's been pretty up and down. For symptom wise, I'm doing pretty good. I've started a new dose on a medication, and it's turned out that like less than 1% of people get super hungry as a side effect to the biologic I'm taking. So that's been kind of concerning. But otherwise, I've been doing good with spoon wise. Like I have a lot of energy this week, which is really
That's
nice and
great.
refreshing. Yeah, we've definitely been just connecting in the community. One of our Spoonies we've been really amping up. He just did a half marathon.
No
He's an
way.
AS warrior as well, and that was a big goal of his. So I've just been really trying to connect and have those like positive connections, and you're one of them. But of course, with that comes like negative things, especially in the social media world. Um, Definitely, I've seen this quite often since I have joined like as a Spoonie account. A lot of like really what I feel is like unethical and not very genuine sales tactics upon
Mm,
the Spoonie community, really pushing like the wellness and health. And I think anyone who's a Spoonie kind of understands how just how difficult it is to have that anxiety about the foods that you're eating or the
yeah.
medications or the supplements or oh, I did this wrong or I shouldn't be taking this, or there's a lot that comes with just the personal concoctions that we have to take each day, and the lifestyle that we live. And I've been approached by a few people who've really wanted to push this supplement or this is how you have to do it.
Yeah.
And it's a scary place when you get into that kind of stuff because some people are very desperate and very susceptible to um they're really susceptible to trying anything that they can to feel better.
Yeah, it's true. And it's also kind of frustrating because, like, this whole Spoonie Instagram thing this community is quite new. Like, I mean, from my perspective, it's only been around for like a year, maybe even 2 years, but really has grown in the last year, I think, especially due to COVID. And it's like we're trying to build something positive as Spoonies, right? We're trying to put a positive message, we're trying to support each other, and then you get kind of people coming in and trying to take advantage of that. And it's really frustrating because it's like stay out of our space. This is a positive message.
And that's it, right? And if we have people who are just coming and saying, hey, do you want to buy this product, I have a lot more respect for that, even though I still don't think it's right, than for someone who kind of tries to build that genuine relationship, but it ends up just being um, like you're giving over your personal information and your vulnerability as a weapon for them to, then really leech in and have the sales
Yeah.
tactic. And yeah, that's not why I'm here. That's anyone that I know and connect with. That's not why they're here. They're here to share their struggles and their triumphs and, make that connection.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the answer is. I think it's just being maybe firm with those people that are trying to sell stuff and say, like, look, if you want to sell me something, buy an ad on Instagram. Because, like, honestly, I mind that less than people sliding into my DMs. Because, like, I don't, if it's a good product, like, I'm not opposed to it, but it's that almost being falsely genuine and being like, oh, yeah. I'm sorry that's been happening. I haven't experienced that as much with chronic cold, but I know a lot of people in the community that have, and we also try to be really careful about how we're approaching the community. Because, like, I think I've probably made mistakes in that respect as well. Because I'm like, oh, like, check out this song that we just released. And it's from a heart of, like, I want to support the community, but you do have to be careful. And I'm learning that as well.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely a balance there. I mean, we all need to, definitely make a living. We all need to promote what we feel is really important. I just think that, when you're promoting maybe a song that you poured your heart into, if someone doesn't love it or doesn't want to like check it out, that's one thing. But when you're asking someone to spend money to join them, to this is going to be what gets you off your medications, like those are very toxic, scary places to be, like I said, especially for people who are super vulnerable and are really at their end and don't know where to turn. It can be a really slippery slope. But I make sure to reply to them, and I let them know, all of my doctors that I see, I let them know that I consult with them quite regularly, and I just let them know I'm really not interested and I really don't appreciate using my the hashtags or however they're coming in, because I will screenshot and put it on my stories. I don't know if that's right or wrong to do, but I do, to let the rest of the people in the community know. And you would be shocked about how many messages I get saying that person messaged me within the last week as well. So it's definitely focusing in on that that group of people.
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, I think I think just spreading awareness around that is a good thing, honestly. And good on you. And honestly, you're doing great things for the community. I have such good feedback for you. I've seen other people that have such good feedback, and I think you'll go far. Like, whatever you end up doing, I think we've talked about this. I'm just excited to see where this takes you. Switching gears a little bit, next segment that we like to go into is talking about your pet peeve. So can you tell us what your pet peeve is?
Well, besides the unsolicited medical advice from strangers on the internet, I have been thinking about this for a while now, and there was another interview that you did with someone, and you mentioned like, oh, when you say pet peeve, it pops into your head right away. And that's so true, because mine is when I get the burn signal on my Instant Pot. Sorry, however you say it. When it, sometimes I'll try, like when I first got it, I would try to make like a full meal in the Instant Pot. So like with the rice and your veggies and whatever, like you put your chicken breast, and for whatever reason, I have messed up somehow and it says burn. And when it says that, it doesn't come to full pressure. It doesn't cook your food. It's stuck to the bottom, and pretty much everything in there is like totally garbage. And when I see the burn thing, like I see red. I flip out. So now I pretty much only use it for like straight chicken, because I just can't risk that kind of like
that kind of stress and anger. Yeah. It's like your biggest trigger.
Yeah. Like it scares me how like upset it makes me, because it's not that big of a deal.
This is what I love though about pet peeves, or love or hate, is like it doesn't always make sense. That's the point. And for those of you that don't know what an Instant Pot is, it's like this, it's kind of like a rice cooker, pressure cooker, like Jess said, and there's specific recipes, and it's actually meant to be like this, oh, you can cook anything in it, like you can cook this, and that's why it's kind of funny that you're like, oh, I can only cook chicken, because I get so stressed out if anything gets burned.
It's, and I've thought about it. It's happened a few times, and I was like, is it that I'm wasting food? Is it that I'm not going to be able to eat on time? Like, what makes me so enraged? I don't know. I'll have to do some deep inner work. You have to
go to therapy for that one.
Yeah.
You're like, see your counselor. I get triggered by the Instant Pot.
I feel that. I know. Sorry, I laughed so hard when you said that. The burn, because I just wasn't expecting that. Okay, so but this is like, I guess goes into our topic for the day, which is like being a Spoonie parent, because like these are the types of things that happen. Like you get triggered or things happen and it's like you respond in certain ways that I have no idea where this is coming from. Do your kids do certain things that kind of trigger you?
Yeah, definitely. If we're trying to get out the door, generally where they're allowed and like where they're baby gated in is like our huge dining room and our living room, and it's like a huge area. I'm in it right now, I'm in a part of it. And so they don't get to, they're only 2 and 3, so they don't get to spend a lot of time like in our kitchen or, you know, roaming the house by themselves. So when it's time to like go outside or we have to go somewhere or get in the car, the trip from the living room to the front door, it's like, let's see how much we can touch. Let's see how many drawers we can pull open, like how much we can knock over. Yeah, I get very triggered by that. I'm like, please just stop, just don't touch. Let's just go. But like back to what you said about the Instant Pot, I really think that I think maybe in general for parents, but definitely if you're a Spoonie parent, you only have so much energy per day. And I really have my day very structured around routine. I know how long things are going to take. We generally stick to those things. And yeah, so for a meal to be off by an hour, that means that now I need to find a resource to find something else that we're having for dinner. I'm going to have 2 kids who are having a meltdown, and that's a lot of energy to deal with when you're not feeding hungry toddlers. So yeah, there's definitely things as a Spoonie parent that I really do implement to make my life easier. So sometimes when those go off track, it just throws the whole day. And sometimes I wonder if that's healthy, but that's just how we do it.
Well, and it sounds like you're really structured. And, you know, I'm not a parent, so I don't know much about that. But I have heard, like, some people are like, don't structure, and some people are like, structure. But I think at the same time, it also depends on the family, what works for the family. Do you think your kids have adapted to, or have some, I mean, they're quite young, right? But do you think they have some understanding that you only have a limited amount of capacity, and that because of that, you've put certain things in place?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for the most part, our wake up time, meal times, nap time, and bedtime are all the exact same every day. So, in that aspect, I don't think they even know that they have leeway, that they can decide that they want to stay up later or they don't want to go to bed. They're just so used to it. We implemented that from day one. So that we don't really ever have to struggle with. But as far as them like understanding what my limitations are, I'm very open with my children in the most age appropriate way about the fact that I do have a lot of pain in my body, that I get very tired. And I think it's just something naturally that when they understand from the day that they're born, it's just not anything that they have to question. An example is today, when my son was going down for his nap, I said, this afternoon, we'll play in the backyard and we'll play dragons. He likes when we run after him and we're a dragon. So I said, we will do that, but you have to take your nap. And so then when the time came, I was really in a lot of pain, but I had promised him and I knew he was looking forward to it. So we played dragons for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes maybe. And then I went and sat down and he said, come on, chase me, mom. And I had to say, honey, I'm in a lot of pain and I can't play dragons anymore, but maybe later. And he just looked at me and said, oh, okay, and turned and walked away. I think that he definitely gets it. Maybe not like fully. He doesn't really understand like the you, the reason or that I have a disease or what a disease is, but he does.
Oh,
did I cut out?
yeah, you cut out. Yeah, so can you start from I think he does, and you said something like,
I think I was saying,
sorry, it's just for the sake of editing as well.
I think he does understand that. Okay. I'm just gonna we can like cut after this, but did you get the part about the empathy? I think that's where I was heading.
No, we didn't get that part.
Okay. So I think he understands that there's something wrong with me and that I'm in a lot of pain. I think he understands the empathy part of it. I just don't think he understands the whys behind it.
Yeah.
But I definitely, he's my older one, so he definitely gets a little bit more. My daughter just sort of tags along and does whatever he does. So that kind of makes it a little easier too.
Yeah. I mean, I often wonder how much kids pick up, you know what I mean? And how, like, if there's a subconscious understanding of your limitation and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to adjust to that. I don't know if, like, I don't know if we can know, to be honest. But it sounds like your kids are, like, really well behaved and that you put a lot of structure around that, which is awesome. How do you manage, I guess, when you, because I guess what I'm getting at is, you mentioned that you promised your son to play dragons, right? But then you were in a lot of pain. And so I'm sure, my guess is there's sometimes when you are actually like, I'm in so much pain, I can't. And then there's sometimes where you kind of push through and you're like, well, I did promise that. What's the balance? How do you manage that? Because it's obviously very hard. It's not that you don't want to, it's that you physically are limited. So how do you manage that?
So definitely there's two parts to that. One is that more so with my my son who's older, I'm really understanding how much he listens and takes those promises in. So for me, I really try to not make those promises because, you know, for the most part, I can't predict what's going to happen. I can't predict if it's going to rain. I can't predict if something's going to come up or if I'm going to be really sick. I generally try to stay away from those types of promises that are more than 10 or 15 minutes away. Just because if I say no, that's a bigger battle down the road. And he's really getting to the age where he's, if you say something, he's taking your word for it.
Yeah.
And then the second part is I just really evaluate where I'm at. If it's a weekday, how much time I have left in the day with them by myself. And with our days being broken up, both of them still nap for between like an hour and a half to sometimes 3 hours. That really helps me have downtime. So if it is something in the morning that they want to do, I know that at least, you know, in the afternoon, I'll have a little bit of a break. Or if it's, you know, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my husband's usually home by 4. So that's how I try to manage throughout the day if they're asking for something. But there are times for sure where I just have to say, I'm sorry, I'm in so much pain, I need to lay down. And I think we really, you know, I don't think kids have to say things the way that adults do. When we see somebody in pain, we want to either fix them or we want to comfort them or give them, you know, we say nice things to them. Whereas children, when they see that and they can really see it and feel it, they just know. I've had lots of times where I've just had to take my heating pad and lay on the floor in their playroom or whatever it is, and they just do their own thing. They will mimic me and say that their back hurts and they need to lay down. Um, but yeah, when it comes down to those moments where like I cannot move and I'm really struggling, I don't have to say too much. They sense it, I think.
Yeah. And in those moments, do you ask for help from either the people around you or even them to, go get you something? Like, what's that look like for you to ask for help as a Spoonie parent?
For us, we have a little bit of a unique situation, whereas we're a military family. So we're about 5 or 6 hours away from our immediate family. And, you know, we are in a community that's full of people who are coming and going a lot. I do have people that I can call 100% who are there to help me out. But generally, everyone else has families and toddlers and school and work.
Yeah.
And, you know, for the most part, I rely a lot on my husband's help. So if I really need him, he's able to come home. The military is pretty flexible with things like that. We don't have very many outside resources, but that is why for me it's so important to structure our days very routinely.
Yeah.
And it's not like every minute is laid out, but um, be, so we have predictability, and it just makes it easier for them. So I'm not having 5 or 10 meltdowns throughout the day to have to manage when you have that predictability. But oftentimes, when my husband comes home, if I've had a rough day, I just I communicate that to him and say I need to go and take a break and lay down. And he's definitely my number one support. And as for like the children helping me with things, for sure, like they can do, they can't do too much, but they'll get me
Yeah.
a blanket or a pillow. They'll try to do those types of things. Right now I have them both picking up all of their toys when they're done with them, when they're done playing in the living room. They'll put the couch pillows back on the couch and put away their blankets, things like that, that no, it's not a make it or break it right now, but I'm hoping just the idea that we all have to help each other out will be, useful in the future when they're old enough to really help.
Yeah.
I guess there's so much around that, because one thing is the whole idea of structure. It sounds like it's very beneficial for them, but not only for them, but also for you. Because one of the things I experienced when I had chronic fatigue is putting structure around my day. It was like my body knew when I was going to rest, when I was going to do exercise or stretches or whatever you want to call that, when I was going to eat, etc. And if I deviated from that structure, my body couldn't cope very well. So it sounds like it was, I mean, from my guesses, it was probably good it's good for you as well, because your body can kind of
plan based on that.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely with, even meal planning and eating and times of eating, like we just have a very good structure. So, not that I struggle with like blood sugar or anything like that, but it's just nice when okay, in the morning at this time, I have this amount of time for my coffee and to have breakfast with the kids. Then I know I'm going to be eating again in 2 hours. Like all of that is, yeah, definitely much easier on your body. And it's almost like when my husband gets home, I know that it's time. If I need to, I can rest. And that's how I sort of know when I'm having a really good day, is when I just keep playing with the kids and then I chat with my husband and I'm not like, just disappearing off to rest. It definitely, the routine helps me a lot.
Yeah. And I think as well, I guess what's interesting is I'm not a parent, but I've noticed that like recently someone that I follow on Instagram got an injury, and sort of she posted on her Instagram that she couldn't do all of this stuff and realized that her husband and her kids were way more capable of doing things than than she thought, or than they actually did. And I think sometimes we don't give kids enough credit for how independent, how self-sufficient they can be. For your kids at their age, you said they're 2 and 3, is that what you said? Yeah, for a 2 and 3-year-old to be picking up their toys, putting back the pillows, like that's pretty good. And I don't know if we often train our 2 and 3-year-olds to do that, but I think it just goes to show you that children can actually be quite independent. And even me, when I was a kid, I was the youngest of 5 kids, and my mom taught us all to be very independent. I was doing my own laundry, I think, at like 10 or 11. Because I was capable. Like, it's not that hard. You put it in the washer and then you put it in the dryer.
So,
and this is something that I see sort of in like not even just the Spoonie world, but just like the mom world, just feeling so burned out and so used up all of the time and so stressed out, because you're right, we don't give the other people in our household enough responsibility, or it's just easier to do it yourself. And yeah, definitely sometimes when it takes my kids 15 minutes to pick up a few toys, it's frustrating, but I know that that's a skill that I'm giving to them that I'm hoping will be beneficial to them and to me in the future. And I just don't have time to be doing it for everybody. With even having 2 kids very close in age, we have one who's, pretty well potty trained for the most part. But, looking back 6 months ago, I was changing up to 12 diapers a day.
Wow.
It's a lot. It's very taxing on your body. Like, you have to, outsource the help. And, how I see it and my husband sees it, like, we're a family. And yes, I may have more restrictions than the rest of them, but we're definitely all capable, and we all have to pitch in because they are capable, even at 2 and 3 years old. We put these limitations on kids and even on ourselves sometimes with things we can and can't do.
Yeah. And even I think what you were saying earlier about the empathy component, and I think, again, kids are smarter than they think we are. And what I love about what you're saying is, like, you do tell your children, like, I'm in pain, I'm this is how I'm feeling, because I still love you, I still want to be there, but I actually can't. And I think subconsciously kids understand that, is that there's this underlying, like, I value you, I love you. Just because I have limitations doesn't mean that at the core of it, you're not my child, and that, like, you're, like, one of the most important things in my life. And yeah, I'm not a psychologist, but that's what I would.
I think that's it exactly. I think that giving them something tangible to understand, instead of saying no all the time, like, no, I don't want to play with you, or no, I can't play with you, to give them that reason, and that's an understanding. Again, I don't know, because this is my first time around doing it, but I'm hoping that, like what you said, that does give them, a little bit more to hold on to than just like, my mom never wanted to play with me. They can hopefully, my fingers are so crossed that they're not in therapy in 20 years, but that they will say, my mom loved me very much and she played with me when she could, but she was in a lot of pain. That's my hope. We can check back in 20 years and we can see how big the therapy bill is.
Honestly, I think we all need therapy. It's just like minimizing how much we need, right?
Yeah.
Like, my goal in the future is that my kids don't need a lot of therapy, but they probably will still need therapy.
Right.
Yeah, and along with that, like, yeah, exactly. So along with that, there's this whole idea of, okay, you have limitations, you can't do certain things with them when obviously you want to. How do you manage, like, is there guilt that comes along with that? Is there disappointment, sadness, etc.? How do you manage that?
Yeah, there is definitely, and I don't think that's specific to being a Spoonie mom with limitations. I know that is a universal thing for moms, but when it comes to the Spoonie aspect and me not being able to do certain things that my peers are doing with their children, it really weighs heavy on me most days. The narrative I'm trying to build up in my mind is sort of what we've just talked about. The fact that I'm hopefully providing them with independence and understanding, and not just of me, but of people who have disabilities, people who, aren't capable, people who look a little bit different. I'm hoping that they will just be empathetic towards people with disabilities. I do my injections in front of them. I try not to hide it. I just try to normalize, so that if there's a kid in their grade 1 class who needs insulin injections, or if they have a kid who's allergic to peanuts and needs an EpiPen, that they will not think twice about it. It'll just be normal for them. So those are some things that I try to tell myself, the compassion part of it. And on the flip side as well, the things like this podcast that I'm doing, hopefully will exist when they're teenagers and they can look back and see what I was trying to do for them and what I was trying to do for other moms who are in this space. It's really a battle of your mind back and forth, because there's days that I think about, my arthritis, and when they are of age to be playing hockey or skating or doing those things, am I going to be able to sit in, a hockey arena for all weekend in the freezing cold with my condition? Will I have to say no to that? I think about the future a lot. And those are things that really bother me. I definitely think the biggest thing I feel guilt around is when I have very low patience from either being super fatigued or in a lot of pain. And also just having two toddlers is just, tiring, and,
Yeah.
it wears you out on itself. Um, but when I have less patience with them, and if I raise my voice or if I'm just snappy with them, that I think really is what gets me, because they didn't ask for a parent who had chronic pain. um, but I really try again with the communication and being open when I put them down for the night and say goodnight to them. If I have yelled at them or if I have done something that I shouldn't have done, I voice that to them. And my 3-year-old has no problem telling me that I hurt his feelings and he didn't like it. And and it's really difficult, but I'm just hoping that, each day I try brand new, and he will see that I'm being a human and apologizing to him when I've done wrong. And maybe that'll just be another lesson that he takes with him. I hope. Or again, he'll be in therapy forever.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's just so hard with, I think, knowing how certain things affect kids. I can only think of my life, and it wasn't the experiences that necessarily shaped my life, more being able to go to the aquatic park or on these great holidays or whatever. It was the underlying, I guess, messages that I got of like love and acceptance and that sort of thing. Like, I think the fact that you allow your kids to express their feelings is massive, because I think from what I've observed, so many parents, especially maybe even in previous generations, kind of push back feelings. But it's like they're so you need to, even as adults, like I'm dealing with my inner child through counseling, and all my inner child wants me to do is acknowledge how they're feeling, and it's that simple. So I don't know, I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
If that's any indication. I don't know.
It's really, I think you're right. I think just the love that you feel and the overall, like feeling you get from your parents definitely is what shapes you and the things that you think back upon. And also, yeah, 100% being heard and having your feelings heard and validated. um, Definitely, we're coming into a new generation of parents who, it is important to hear what your kids have to say, and it's important to try. Now, it doesn't mean I go around every time that they cry and I'm like, oh honey, like I'm so sad that you're sad, please tell me why you're sad. Like, I don't always have the patience for that, and I don't always do that. But when I can collect myself in a moment of, like, bedtime, or in the morning, we often will sit and watch some TV together on the couch.
Yeah.
While I have my coffee, like those times I really try and have that conversation. But in the midst of it, sometimes they're crying and I'm just like, oh, I can't deal with you right now. But I'm doing my best.
Yeah, of course. Like, there's definitely a balance there.
Yeah.
How what kind of advice would you give? I guess we've kind of talked about this a little bit already, but look, I think the emotions that you feel as a Spoonie parent are so real. And I haven't been a Spoonie parent, but I've been a Spoonie, and there's already on that level so much guilt, shame, et cetera, et cetera. And I can't imagine then adding that layer of parenting on it. What advice would you give? And I guess, how do you continue to kind of change that narrative in your own mind?
I think, for me, I don't have anyone in my life who suffers from chronic pain or illness the way that I do. Not openly, anyways. Maybe that there is, but they don't share, and that's everyone's prerogative. For me, not being able to connect with somebody in my life is the reason that I came to Instagram and I joined this community, is to find somebody who could
Yeah.
relate to me, who could share those feelings with me. And initially, it was for my own self at the beginning, to find how other people were dealing with their illnesses and those feelings personally. And then I really saw this huge community of moms who are also struggling. So I think my advice would be to find somebody who you can mirror yourself back in.
Yeah.
Those are people who can truly sit and give you that advice and that feedback. You know, I've talked to quite a few Spoonie moms who have children who are either in their very late teens or, you know, even adult children. And, you know, they can reflect on, to me, the importance of teaching them to be independent and showing them how much you love them and all those things, and that it's okay that they turn out to be great kids. I think finding that
That's good.
community in whatever way that is, yeah, I think that is really what people need, whether you're a Spoonie, you know, whether you've lost somebody, whether you like to dye your hair crazy colors. Like there's everyone
Yeah.
searching for community for the things that they love or the things that impact their lives a lot. And I think that's really what has helped me change my narrative, and talking to people sometimes who aren't even Spoonie parents, people like you who just say really nice things to you and can validate you and see you and know your struggle. Um, that has been just, you know, a big confidence booster. And, you know, I think there's a certain amount that's on the line when you're a Spoonie, and you just realize how joyful life can be and how miserable life can be. And it just
Yeah.
really, like our first conversation, you just really are looking for those connections. You're not looking to waste time and chit chat, and, you know, you want those deep connections, you want to be heard. So finding community is, I think, just absolutely important.
Yeah, I'm actually just getting emotional as you're talking because it's something that I lacked when I had chronic fatigue syndrome, was that community, and I'm finally getting it now, and it's so beautiful to be able to share these
It really,
moments, and it's like that immediate connection of we have an understanding that there's so many things that are unimportant and we're able to just
yeah,
connect on the important things, you know, because it's like you only have so many spoons in a day. So there's literally no point in talking about the weather because
exactly.
you know, and I love
Exactly.
that. And the whole idea of community, and that's what we're trying to build at Chronic Hope, is this community. What's what you're trying to build. It's spreading the message of you're not alone. You're you don't have to feel that guilt. You don't have to feel that shame, because in spite of your illness, you're a whole person and you're just as valuable as someone that's able. And I love that, and
Exactly.
I love that we've connected in that way because of this community. And so actually along those lines, you mentioned that there's some accounts that and people that you follow, like can maybe you share those with us and we can put that in the show notes as well. And
Yeah, for sure. So the first that I spoke about earlier on, he's a fellow AS warrior, and he just finished a half marathon,
oh wow.
and he is just an amazing account to follow for, you know, inspiration and changing that narrative in your mind. And he's Motive Max on Instagram. Him and I are actually going to do a live on Monday, so I don't know what, this probably won't be up by then,
Oh
but we're
yeah, it
hoping
will.
to do it on like, oh, okay. So
Yep, it's
yeah,
going
I
up
don't
on
know what
Monday.
time we're doing it on Monday. Okay, awesome. Um, and yeah, so him and I are going to do a live. We're hoping that it'll be like a, maybe like a every other week type thing. But he's been incredible, just a really incredible resource. He's been struggling with AS for quite some time. So anyone who does have AS, he's just a good resource. But even if you're just a completely healthy person, what he's accomplished is really amazing.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to speak so, you know, so passionately about people you don't even know. And I think that is the thing that makes this community so special.
Yeah.
Another is a Canadian mom of two. She has just been so inspirational to me and really has, you know, spoken about being a mother with disability, and actually even being able to say that she's a mom with disability and using those words and that language.
Yeah.
and really bringing that to the forefront. I think that's so amazing because a lot of people struggle with being able to identify. And so that's Bump and Hustle on Instagram. She's incredible. She's got wonderful posts. I believe she has a podcast. I think she has a blog as well. She's been really inspirational. Yeah, those two people
That's
are
awesome.
really pushing me. And you think they're strangers on the internet, but sometimes those are great connections to
Yeah,
have.
totally. Yeah, and are there any other recommendations you might have in terms of like books, podcasts, music, blogs for people that are kind of new to the Spoonie parenting space?
Yeah, so I haven't actually dived too much into the actual like parenting aspect, and I haven't found too much content, sort of like what you said in the beginning, that isn't really focused around being a Spoonie parent. That's something that I'm
Yeah.
hoping to, move forward a little bit with myself. But as for anyone who's new to the community, Jason with the Ankylosing Spondylitis podcast, even if you don't suffer from ankylosing spondylitis, he has a lot of really good resources in his podcast that are very simple, easy to understand. He has a very lovely voice to listen to as well. He was one of the first, resources that I connected with, and yeah, he's made a big difference. For any other types of resources, I'm in Canada, so the Arthritis Society is
Cool.
Can you hear that? I hope you can cut this out. They have
No, I can't hear
explosions
anything.
going and it's shaking my iPad. I'm hoping it won't.
Military life.
Yeah. It's so loud. Okay, hold on.
I can't hear it at all.
So yeah, the arthritis is, it like literally shakes.
Oh no, I can actually hear it.
And I'm like, oh, please.
The Arthritis Society.
Did you hear that? Okay, so yeah, the Arthritis Society has been a really great one. The Canadian Arthritis Patient Alliance is another one. They have an amazing email newsletter. I'm not quite sure how frequently it comes out, but they have anything from webinars to, filling out disability forms to webinars about, arthritis. They have a lot of really good resources. And then there's websites like ankylosingspondylitis.net and axialspondylitis.net. Those are two advocate-run forums. And so there's a lot of just very informal articles about people's experiences, their struggles, just by advocates like you and I. So those have been really great resources that I have found.
Okay. Great. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. We'll put all of that in the show notes so that people can reference them.
Yeah.
And I love what you're doing as well about the Spoonie parenting, because again, myself, I haven't seen a lot around it. But it's such a massive thing. Like there's so many parents out there that have health issues. I mean, whether it be dietary or energy or anything. And there's stigma around it. I mean, parenting in itself is a hard thing, and everyone's going to tell you that you should do it this way or that way, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not a parent, but I've seen from the outside kind of how the community can kind of be. But yeah, I can't wait to see what you start to create in terms of that space and creating a space for people.
I hope that it can evolve and people can find the connection, because sort of like what I was saying, I think people are having a hard time even identifying that they either have a disability or that they are a Spoonie in itself. And without the language, you don't really know where to look or who to connect with. So I'm hoping with having people own that and being able to give yourself a label in this type of way, you can have that, tangible thing to resource and to really find other people to connect with.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It has been a joy to chat with you. Time flew by. I
Thank
just
you so
love
much
chatting
for
with
having
you.
me.
And yeah, thanks again. And let us know if once you kind of get started with that, and we'll do what we can to help you out and support you.
Awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks.